Welcome to So You Want to Join the C-Suite, a monthly podcast based on our ILTACON 2025 panel. This series takes you inside the realities of law firm leadership. We share unfiltered stories about what it takes to lead at the top, the wins, the trade-offs, the moments nobody else talks about. Each month, we dig into the behind-the-scenes side of executive life, navigating chaos, avoiding burnout, earning trust, and learning how to lead when everybody wants a piece of your time or your budget. Today, we're discussing chaos theory, when leadership doesn't match the brochure. Our returning panelists are James McKenna, CIO of Fenwick and West, Skip Lobemeyer, CIO of Parker Poe Adams and Bernstein, Adam Kane, COO and CTO of Hooper Law Office, and I'm Stacey Graff, CEO of Federate Legal. So leadership is usually described in clean, flattering language, titles, influence, progress. We don't always hear about what it takes to look like success and how it feels when you're living in it. Before we kick that off, does anybody want to talk about their New Year's resolutions? Do we make New Year's resolutions? How are we starting off this new 2026 year?
I'm excited.
I'll start off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
yeah,
for it, Jim. Yeah, go for it.
My enduring New Year's resolution is to lose weight, and sadly, I'm excellent at finding it. So hopefully, I can, keep those two at bay.
It's a classic. I'm trying to get my cholesterol down. I'm trying to not focus on the scale so much and the other statistics that my doctor says I should be looking at.
Jim, I've seen you lift heavy things. I think you're okay. You're doing all right. Now, I'm excited for 2026. I think there's, at least in my firm, 2025 was a pretty big year of change. I'm hoping 2026 brings a little stability, and with stability comes some excitement. So for me personally, and for those at the firm here, we're pretty excited for 2026. Got some big things happening, so that's exciting.
And redecorating your house?
And well, bought a new house. So at this point, yeah, because of course, why not buy a nice house and then completely tear out all the carpeting, redo the hardwood floors, paint every room, and install all new fixtures? Sounds like a great idea.
It's because you didn't have anything else really going on, right?
Nothing else. None of us do actually in the
Yeah.
C-suite. We just sit in our desks, right, in our glass offices on the 20th floor and just look over everybody. No.
For the last
Okay.
few years, I've not created a resolution list. I guess you could say it's that, but I create a personal goals list between that Christmas and New Year's timeframe. And I have like 5 categories. I started out much smaller with fewer categories, 5 categories of areas of things that I want to accomplish in that single next year. And they're always something that can reasonably be achieved. And I put 1 or 2 in each category. So I have faith, family-oriented, hobbies, health, and then I have some around work, whether it be professional development or something like that. And it helps set me up and remind me through the year of things that I want to do. Like the one I want to do for my hobbies this year is during the pandemic, like a lot of people sitting around, had a little more free time, I tried to pick up guitar, acoustic guitar. And my son had left his guitar behind when he joined the Army. And I started picking up his guitar to play around with it. And I really enjoyed it and liked it. And so this year, my goal is to learn a set of 10 songs by the end of the year that I can play reasonably well. Now, I won't be able to sing them because I don't sing very well, but I can at least strum along. So that's my resolution, I guess you could say, for the year.
So I'm not a big resolutions person because, like Jim, I have the same ones that I do every year. But how do you have tips and tricks for keeping that front of mind so that you don't just forget about them in February or March?
Yeah, I have them recorded in OneNote, and then I at least every quarter, maybe more often, depending on if I'm working on things, I like to get some crossed off. So it feels like I'm making progress in my life. And I got to tell you, there's something about the psychology of crossing things off of a list like that, which is why I work on small goals, little things that I think that I could really, truly accomplish in the next year. And I don't put anything that's overly lofty or impossible or such an uphill climb that I'll never get it. I like to put things on there that I can look forward to crossing off by the end of the year.
I love that. I'm
That's really impressive, Skip. That's awesome.
yeah, that's words to live. I need to revisit my goals for the year. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. It's illuminating. Shall we jump into our topic of the day
Please do.
around roles that check boxes, but didn't necessarily bring the fulfillment that we expected? Does anybody, I want to talk about, roles or promotions or milestones that looked like a win, but didn't feel like it once you check that box. And do you have any moments that you want to share around achieving something that didn't feel like a win at the end of the day?
I've got an insight into that one, Stacey. And it goes a little bit like this. To jump to the end, sometimes you don't realize what you've learned until later. And some things that were hard in your past bear fruit much later. And my little situation was about 20 years ago during a performance review. I was presented with with an opportunity to lead what was then new, the litigation practice support department of my previous law firm. And it was a great opportunity. E-discovery was the hot new topic. This was going to be, this great chance to, learn and do, wonderful things, et cetera, et cetera. And I was super excited, and I dove into it, feet first. And I quickly found out that the chair of the litigation department, perfectly nice person, had no interest in technology and publicly said so. They just said, I just want it to work. I don't want to know this. I didn't want to learn it. And this was, at the time, that type of thing. Perspectives changed over the course of time. Well, initially I was defeated. And, here I've got this job and I didn't know what to do. And I'm responsible for a variety of things. And I didn't have a whole lot of direction other than make it work. And I very quickly had to learn how to identify what needs to be done in a situation where specifics haven't been identified. I also had to learn how to work with people. And when you work with litigators, all of them are excellent at making their request or their demand sound like the most important thing in the third dimension. So you get to understand the nuances and what's important versus what's critical, what's absolute, what has to happen right now, those type of things. And then how to line the work up in such a way so that you can build upon it. You're not just putting one fire out every single day. You're doing a variety of things to address the fires that are burning, but you're also removing the combustible materials so that it can't burn later. And look at that. Next thing you're moving forward. So I did that job for a few years, and I never really had a sense if I was doing well or not. It turns out I was, and the benefits that it paid off for me in my career later on was the whole idea of, when you become a leader, rarely are you given a to-do list. And we were just talking about that. And rarely is it so clear that I did number one, I did number two, that means I lead into number three and such. And instead, how powerful it feels to be given a piece of paper saying, can you identify some things that we need to do? And we're going to trust you to put them in the right order. And yeah, please mark them off as fast as you can. But do it in a way that everybody is, happy and, ideally makes the firm, a better place. And I learned that skill set 20 years ago, and I didn't realize I was learning it at the time. At the time, I thought this was really, really hard, and some days I thought it was unfair. But when I look back upon that, I am so grateful for that opportunity. And it put me into a position where I had no choice. I had two choices. I could choose to grow or I could choose to wither. And I chose to grow, and it really made a difference.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the most rewarding parts about being in leadership is the ability to build things and building something new. Like you're talking about, e-discovery was a brand new thing. You didn't have a template to follow. You had to figure it out. And that can be so scary, but so rewarding when you get it done. Any other thoughts you guys have on the topic?
I agree. I think that you really have to concentrate on figuring out the blueprint. Sometimes what's left behind from taking over a role is incomplete. Sometimes it's fully there, and you have to figure out how to make it work in your own way. And that's also very difficult. But it's just figuring it out. As we talked about before, we're chief figure outers.
Some you just said, Skip, made me think about some of the roles I've stepped into in the past. I almost find it easier to step into an incomplete role than to step into a role where somebody has checked all the boxes and you're sort of looking at their roadmap and you're trying to dissect it rather than the ability to just create your own. And I mean, everybody who jumps into a C-suite role is going to enter a different situation. But there's a lot of value in stepping into a role where you get to define what the rest of that project looks like. And oftentimes, unless it's retirement, or somebody's moving on from doing the right thing, a lot of times I see these positions open up because the person previous didn't complete the roadmap or wasn't able to accomplish what they had wanted. So it really provides some great opportunity to sort of create your own path and create your own plan, to Jim's point.
So, what did you think that executive leadership would look like before you got into it? Did it, is it what you expected?
I thought it'd be less ambiguous. There's sometimes when that vision that we were just talking about isn't provided, it's not clear. So I really thought that before I got into my first chief level role, that there would be just this clear roadmap and vision ready for me when I got there. Another part of that is the authority and responsibilities would be very clear, set in stone about where and what you're supposed to be doing. And through the years, I found that executive leadership is not just about control. It's about carrying the responsibility that you discover through being in that role, even when the answers are incomplete, even when that vision is incomplete. Part of why you're in the C-suite is to fill in the gaps of what isn't there, what's missing in that vision or in that authority and responsibilities that you're supposed to carry.
Well, it's like Jim said about making your own checklist, right? That there's the expectation. I think that even people in like the management committee and the executive committee thinks they're clearer, like what the roles and responsibilities are and what the goals are, but it's once you get in, it's never exactly as prescriptive as they made it out to be in the interview process, or at least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I agree with all the statements that were provided. A lesson that could be learned, at least from my experience, is a key difference between, in my opinion, between being a director versus a chief. Is a director ultimately is told, here's what you need to do and in the following order. Maybe not necessarily at the granular level, but like here's the big project by when in this constraint. The director is going to participate on the planning and the creation of the budgets and and all that type of stuff, but they're going to be given approval. And that guidance or the clarity, it's really easy when you're a director to assume that when you walk through that door of the chief, it's going to be that much and more. And it's actually, to Skip's point, and it sounds like we've had a similar journey, you have a conversation about the aspirations, you have a conversation about perhaps the long-term vision, but the path from here to there, in my experience, is really, really squiggly. And there is a point of where you have to recognize, okay, here's what I will need to do so I can gain enough, I'll call it headspace, so I can focus on the over the horizon problems. That's true. Something that Adam shared, I find that whenever a new person comes into the C-suite, there's an inevitability that they're inheriting something mid-flight that they were unaware of. There is something that's over the horizon that has been identified, and everything that needs to be improved is again presented in the present because you're the new person. The person who left the role could have been doing an absolutely fabulous job, but when you're new blood, it all comes at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it reminds me of this last role I took. I walked into the role, not really sure what to expect, and the guidance I was given by the partner ownership was, let us know what your plans are. It wasn't here's what we want you to accomplish. It was tell us what you think needs to be accomplished, and that's a great responsibility. I mean, it's also fantastic because it provides you an opportunity to really be yourself and to chart your own path. But it is a lot of responsibility to be told, figure it out. And that went so far as even, we haven't really talked about compensation. Obviously, we all know that when you get to the C-suite, compensation does go up, and that's in line with the responsibility that you have. And there's a lot that goes into that. But I was even told, figure out what you want your bonus structure to look like. What are your KPIs? What are your metrics that you think we need to hit? And that's a lot, especially for somebody who just walks into a role. I mean, it was something I didn't expect. And wasn't a question that I asked either ahead of time. I because it was something I wanted to avoid. You never know. That was my first C-suite role, and you don't know what you're walking into, so you tend to avoid some of those difficult questions. But that was one that, I wish I would have asked ahead of time, because it would have provided me a better response than in the moment saying, okay, I'll figure it out and let you know. I would have come in a little bit more well prepared.
I mean, there's a lot to be said for choosing your own adventure, but so
Yeah.
how do you stay grounded? Like, how do you find what is true north when you're in that kind of situation where, you know, you have a certain set of expectations and they don't necessarily align with the expectations of the other people that you're working with or reporting to or anything like that? How do you, and you're not given a script, like how do you stay centered?
I think you have to know who you are as a person. And it changes the longer you've been with an organization. I know for me, and I can only speak to myself in this position, but I have to make sure that I'm deliberate about what I'm involved in. If I allow myself to get bogged down into the minutia and not trust the people that are in the positions they're in, and that trust takes time, because you don't know, especially when you're new in a role, you don't know who you have in what position and what their capabilities are. It takes time to really figure that out. But once you're there, you have to trust people to make those decisions. You have to trust people to do what needs to get done, so you don't become reactionary and just listen to the noise. That boundary has really helped me. And I have to remind myself of that all the time, because I need to consistently look at the big picture. But there's some really great opportunity in that as well, because one of the pieces that this role provides is the ability to mentor and to grow others that are in your charge. I mean, that part of the piece of being in a C-suite, I mean, I guess you could come in with a big hammer, but the reality is, if you want to succeed, you need to be able to help others become successful as well. And by giving them the runway to do their job, and by giving them the ability and the tools necessary and the trust that you have in them to accomplish what they need to accomplish, and to just say, no, I need you to make the decisions and we'll connect on them. If it's anything big, let's talk about it. But for the day-to-day stuff, I trust you to do it. That provides them a lot of growth opportunity, and it provides you the opportunity to step back, create that boundary, and just to focus on the big picture, whatever that happens to be in your role, whether it's financial, it's operational, it's technology, it's security. But if you get bogged down in sort of the day to day, like for instance, I can't care about what gets charged on our Amazon credit card every day. If that kind of stuff, right? At the end of the month, I'll look at our budget, and then I'll start digging down if I feel there's a need. But to worry about all the day to day stuff would just become overwhelming.
I tell my team that it's my job to make sure that they're positioned to succeed, not to do it for them, not to ensure the success, but to make sure they have all the tools that they need in order to be successful in what they're doing. And so a lot of our conversations are around like, how do we make sure that we have everything that we need to be successful, and that it's not me doing it, or, even providing micromanagement guidance on it, but how do I make sure that I'm removing roadblocks and then making sure that you've got what you need to be successful?
I mean, really, what you should be providing is mentorship, right? That's our job, is to mentor those people. And if I do my job well and somebody else does their job well and they end up moving on, or they want to take a different role because they've done well, then I feel success. I feel successful.
And those boundaries can be really hard to maintain because
They
it's
are. I think part of it too. And I can only speak for myself, but I kind of enjoy that sometimes, right? I mean, we deal with the big picture all the time, and sometimes it's fun to just get our minds lost in a stupid problem that really has no significance at the end of the day, but it's fun to troubleshoot something, or it's fun to dive into something that we normally don't work on, just to kind of break us from the norm.
I
Yeah.
am guilty of killing an ant with a sledgehammer on occasion. Yeah, I'm with you. Every once in a while, we need a break.
Yeah.
That kind of surprised me about the job too, is how broad the list of disciplines that we must be highly
Mhm.
proficient in, which keeps us pretty entertained. So there's a real positive side to this. So don't take it as a negative, all the different things we have to be experts at. Like I can only speak from the CIO or CTO positions. I'm sure the other C-suite members probably feel very similar in how many different disciplines. For example, tech savvy, okay, yes, given for a CIO. Business savvy, yes, also given for a CIO. Change leader, financial leader. I mean, at law firms, the IT group generally has the third largest
Mhm.
line item budget behind personnel and rent. Portfolio and project manager. You have to be a really excellent project manager. Cybersecurity expert. I heard you guys talking about that a minute ago. Information governance guru, cross-functional leader and collaborator. You have to work with every other team of any type and ilk, and the vendors as well, the partners outside of the company that help supply you with the services and systems that you need. So you have to be a superior negotiator. You have to be a sales and marketing expert because you got to be able to sell projects and gain support for whatever's happening. So you have to be a really excellent communicator, written and verbal. So you have to be a reasonably good public speaker, uh, an HR expert with
Uh-huh.
superior emotional intelligence. I think we talked about that in one of our other discussions. Building trust and sustaining those high performing teams is a critical component. And to dovetail on what you guys were talking about a minute ago, bringing out the best in people. I mean, you have to be a counselor or maybe even a therapist sometimes to get the best out of people and talking them out of their tree.
There have been times when, to your point about being a counselor or a therapist, I am just here to allow people to vent because in my role, I'd rather them come to me, get it all out, and then go back on their day. Right? I don't want them to take those frustrations or that anger or whatever that is to other employees, to coworkers, attorneys, or the public or clients, guests, whatever you call them. That's what I'm here for. You can give it to me. Just lay it on me, right? But at some point, we need our own break because after everybody walking in my office, some days it's a Monday, every day, where everybody's coming in with every complaint they have. But that's our job, and that's the role we signed up for. And so you just got to know that going into it, that's what you're going to be dealing with. And for me, that's okay. I don't mind it. I would rather it come to me than our clients because our firm is being a client first attitude. And so if you got a problem, come and bring it up. Let's deal with it here and, just vent away.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good topic for maybe a later episode is really like where is the boundary between letting people vent while it's still constructive?
Mm,
And then, how do you keep that from creating a culture around venting?
yeah.
And being more
Well, and that's
solution oriented than
yeah, and that kind of goes to how do you keep the open door versus closed door policy in place as well? Because
Mhm.
everybody says they want an open door policy, but that can get pretty overwhelming pretty quickly if you don't put in the proper checks and balances along the way. Yes, you want to be accessible and you want people to be able to feel comfortable coming to talk to you. And it just, since we're going on the topic for a second, for me, it's like, hey, if you want to bring a problem, that's fine, but you also need to bring a solution. And let's
Yes.
decide, let's talk about the solution and see if it's worth it. Then I'm okay. Unless it's something, there's always going to be exceptions to every rule. But for me, it helps to say, hey, look, yeah, come to me with anything, but please bring a solution. Because if you're asking me to come up with every solution, that's not what I'm here for. That's what I expect you to do.
Yeah, there was a great book written ages ago called, it was one of those 1 minute manager ones, and it was 1 minute manager meets the monkey, and how people just want to come into the boss and give them the monkey. And so you, as a boss, you end up just weighed down with everybody's problems. But being able to manage that and maintain that, and to make people keep their own monkeys and solve their own problems sometimes. But finding that balance, I will tell you, that's one of the things that when I stepped in the C-suite, really understanding how much therapy would be required, not just of me going to therapy, but people wanting to come in and share their problems and talk about not just work, but everything else. Because this is where we spend all of our time, and they're bonds that form there. But really figuring out where to say, okay, no, you got to go back to work now. Like you've got to, we can't just spend all day talking about this.
Exactly.
You have
Is
to
an
have,
important skill.
good empathy. You have to have
Hmm.
excellent listening skills. But you have to help the person also prioritize the mission of the company. I mean, at the bottom line, a company is got stuff to do, and they're willing to pay people money to do that stuff. And if you don't do the stuff, they'll find someone else to do the stuff and give them the money. So, there's a certain amount of helping them reframe and get a clear vision of their roles and responsibilities. At least that's been my
Yeah.
experience. How do you guys, are there any trends or anything that you guys see of helping someone who's struggling regain that vision to see the firm's mission versus the struggle and challenge they're going through themselves? That baggage that Stacey was talking about.
I have an insight, and I don't know if it's directly relevant or not, but it kind of goes like this. To the extent that you're able to, for yourself or the people that you are leading, make the equation be as simple as it possibly can be. And it'll get complex by itself. But I'll give you an example. Back in the 60s, the United States, we said we wanted to put a person on the moon. So we needed three things. We needed a rocket, we needed to get them there safely, we needed them to come back. What part of the project are you working on? So from one perspective, yes, we're helping getting people to the moon and back. From another perspective, oh, my job is working on the rocket. I'm going to trust my teammates to worry about them being safe in space and, getting back, that type of thing. And relating it to IT at a law firm, day one as a chief information officer, I don't know what is your second step, but a safe first step is whatever people have needs to be reliable. And the second of which is it needs to be secure. So if you focus on that, that may lead you to your third step, such as what should it be? And all of a sudden, it's a little bit less ambiguous. You have some steps forward and you can make progress. And then along the way, you can reiterate, what is most important to you, what's most important to the team, what's most important to the firm, how it all ties together. And you can start identifying some destinations that you want to aim for. Just a thought or two. And I welcome anybody to agree, disagree, shoot holes in that, have a better one. I want to learn.
I think what you said is fantastic. And jumping off of something Skip said, something I use, you said it pretty close to the way I do. The bottom line is the bottom line. We exist, and if you want to have a job, we have to exist. And so, unfortunately, sometimes you have to just worry about your own responsibilities. And that is really hard. I mean, it does not matter how much you tell individuals or help guide them into that direction, that you have to worry about your own responsibilities, not the responsibilities of everybody around you,
Hmm.
right? It doesn't matter. Some people will always try to jump outside that box. But I think defining it clearly and then slowing down and being as honest as you can without saying too much, right? Trying to find a way to show them what the benefits of their successes are. Because sometimes people are like, well, I just do this one task. But do you realize if you didn't do this one task, then this other person couldn't do this one task, and then the whole thing would fall apart, right? And so I don't think sometimes people realize the bigger picture, and that's our job, is to make sure that they understand it, and just providing some context to it and clarity.
I think for me, helping people see who their customer is and then put themselves in the shoes of their customer. And this is from a leader who I had many, many years ago. He said, if you were in your customer's shoes looking at your department or your function or your individual work, and you're an outsourced service, would you hire you back and renew your services? And boy, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, that's a really good way to put things in perspective, that you're providing a service to someone that they need. They have to need it, and it has to be in a way that they can consume it and get value out of it so they can do their own work for their own customers, and in which case in a law firm is the clients of the firm. So that's how I've tried to frame it with folks, is trying to get them to see it from our customer's point of view. Is it fast enough? Is it the right service? Is it delivered at the right time? And is it delivered at the right cost to them?
That's really great advice. This has been a really great conversation, guys. I really appreciate everything that you've brought to this. Does anybody have any final thoughts or words before we wrap it up?
I have
Okay.
one, and that's to anybody who's aspiring to the C-suite. Keep trying. You can do it. You can do it. None of us, well, I can't speak for all of us. I can speak for myself. You don't know if you can do it until you give it a try. Doing what's necessary to get the exposure to different things, having some successes. Honestly, I think having some contextual failures is even better in your development. When something doesn't go right, you get to learn exactly why it didn't go right. When something goes right, you have you don't know that lightning's going to strike twice, that type of thing. But it's nice on this side of the bridge. Please come.
And
Well said, Jim.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
awesome.
fail fast, right? Learn to fail fast. You're going to do it. It's fine. Just learn from it.
All right. Well, I think we can leave it at that. Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate this. Thanks to our watchers for joining us. And so you want to join the C-suite, where we go behind the title and inside the realities of law firm leadership. We'll be back later this month for the leap from expert to executive, when we explore the shift from doing to leading. So thank you all.